This is VOA News. Via remote, I'm Diane Roberts. Russia's President Vladimir Putin has signed laws absorbing 4 Ukrainian regions into Russia, a move that finalizes the annexation carried out in defiance of international law. Earlier this week, both houses of the Russian parliament ratified treaties making the Donetsk, Luhansk, Kherson, and Zaporizhia regions part of Russia. The formalities followed the Kremlin-orchestrated referendums in the regions that Ukraine and the West have rejected as a sham. Both Russia and Ukraine say they're going to take control of operations at the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant, with President Putin ordering his government to do so just a short time ago. VOA's Anna Chernikova spoke with Flashpoint Ukraine's Steve Miller to help break down the situation.
What we know is that a couple of days ago, the general director of Zaporizhia nuclear power plant was kidnapped. After a day, he was released by Russian forces, and Mr. Grossi announced that actually he is back to the Ukrainian-controlled territory to his family. Also, it was today we have the official address of the president of Energoatom regarding this situation. He said that for the moment, acting general director of the Zaporizhia power plant would be new one, and he says that it would be he himself. So Petro Kotin, who is for the moment the president of the Energoatom, he will now be acting general director of the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant.
The head of the International Atomic Energy Agency, the IAEA, Rafael Grossi, said he was traveling to Ukraine for talks about the plant. A blast hit a mosque in Afghanistan's capital in the vicinity of the heavily fortified Interior Ministry compound Wednesday. This is VOA News. American actor Alec Baldwin and producers for the Western movie Rust have reached a settlement with the estate of the movie's late cinematographer, Helena Hutchins, Deadline reported Wednesday, citing a statement from Hutchins's husband. The cinematographer was shot dead on set during filming last year. As part of the deal, Hutchins said that he will become executive producer of the movie and it will resume filming in January. Baldwin and others face criminal charges over Hutchins's death, a New Mexico prosecutor said in September. Investigators are trying to determine who handled the pistol Baldwin fired during a rehearsal, killing Hutchins and injuring director Joel Souza. U.S. President Joe Biden heads to the U.S. state of Florida today, pledging to put politics aside in the response to Hurricane Ian's devastation. AP Washington correspondent Sagar Magani reports.
After an aerial tour of damage around Fort Myers, the president will meet with business owners, residents, and leaders, including 2 of his most prominent GOP critics. Spokeswoman Karine Jean-Pierre says now is not the time to discuss political differences between the president, Governor Ron DeSantis, and Senator Rick Scott.
We are working as one.
The bipartisan unity message comes with the midterm elections a month away. The president had planned to be in Florida before the storm, partly to rail against what he calls Scott's efforts to hurt Social Security and Medicaid. Sagar Magani, Washington.
Florida officials say they're making progress restoring power following Hurricane Ian as search and rescue efforts continue with at least 75 confirmed dead. The AP's Julie Walker begins with a rescue story.
Johnny Lauder had to rescue his 86-year-old wheelchair-bound mother stuck in her flooded Naples home.
Terror and relief at the same time.
Lee County Sheriff Carmine Marcino says the destruction immense. First responders going door-to-door checking for people.
We can rebuild a home. We can get another boat. But when you lose a loved one, there's just no words that can describe how we feel for that family.
Animals also being rescued, including 275 parrots from a Pine Island sanctuary. Owner Will Paratino says if you're an animal lover, you don't think about yourself first.
Just protecting the animals.
And they all rode out the hurricane together.
Well, they're a family.
I'm Julie Walker.
A Japanese health ministry panel on Wednesday recommended approving Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine for children as young as 6 months. Japan in January expanded use of the vaccine to those as young as 5 years old. Last month, health authorities started to dispense Pfizer and Moderna booster shots that target the Omicron variant of the virus. From Washington via remote, I'm Diane Roberts, VOA News.
This is VOA News. Via remote, I'm Marissa Melton. At least 38 people, including 24 children, were killed in a gun and knife attack Thursday at a child care center in northern Thailand. It was the country's deadliest ever mass shooting carried out by an individual. The killing spree took place in Nong Bua Lampu, about 500 kilometers north of the capital Bangkok. Local authorities identified the gunman as an ex-police officer who was fired from the force last year because of his involvement in drug trafficking. The 34-year-old gunman was initially on the run after fleeing in a white Toyota pickup truck. But police told local media the gunman had since killed himself along with his wife and child. In a Facebook post, Thailand's Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha called the incident shocking. He expressed his deepest condolences to the families of those killed and injured. In the United States, at a press briefing on Thursday, State Department spokesperson Vedant Patel expressed condolences from the United States to the Thai people for their loss in the mass shooting.
We are deeply saddened by the tragedy in Nuang Bam Lapu province, where a shooter took the lives of nearly 40 people, including 24 children.
North Korea fired 2 more short-range ballistic missiles early Thursday as diplomats at the UN Security Council were locked in debate over how to respond to the launch of another missile over Japan 2 days earlier. North Korea's latest ballistic missile test marked the 6th in 12 days. It came hours after a U.S. aircraft carrier returned to waters near South Korea for additional trilateral naval drills. Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida on Thursday decried the volley of missile fire as unacceptable. This is VOA News. 7 Russian rockets have slammed into residential buildings in Zaporizhia in Ukraine, a city close to Europe's biggest nuclear power plant. AP correspondent Karen Chamas has more.
A fire engine is stationed next to what was once an apartment block, but is now a large hill of rubble. An immense and haunting plume of smoke rises from the debris as Zaporizhia's governor, Oleksandr Staruk, looks on. At night, when people were sleeping, the enemy carried out a rocket attack against residential houses. 2 upper floors are destroyed. Entrances to the buildings are ruined. People were under the rubble. The strikes came just hours after Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky announced the Ukraine military has retaken 3 more villages in one of the regions recently annexed by Russia. Speaking to leaders at the Organization of American States Assembly, Zelensky was determined that Ukraine will defeat Russia.
There is only one question for us right now: how many of our people Russia will manage to kill before it admits a defeat?
I'm Karen Chamas.
The UN Human Rights Council called on Sri Lanka to get a grip on its economic crisis and prosecute corruption by public officials in a resolution passed on Thursday. The UN's top rights body voted 20-7 to keep up its focus on the South Asian island nation. Sri Lanka's foreign minister said the government categorically rejects the resolution. The council voiced concern at the human rights impact of the economic crisis, violence against peaceful protesters, and called for a comprehensive accountability process for all rights abuses and violations. Sri Lanka's 22 million population has endured acute shortages of food, fuel, and medicines, along with hyperinflation and lengthy electricity blackouts since late last year. About 6,500 people convicted on federal charges of simple possession of marijuana are being pardoned by U.S. President Joe Biden. This story from VOA's chief national correspondent Steve Herman in Washington.
Disproportionately saying too many lives have been upended because of a failed approach to marijuana, President Biden on Thursday announced he is pardoning all those convicted of prior federal offenses of simple possession of the drug and is urging governors of states to do the same.
There are thousands of people who are convicted for marijuana possession who may be denied employment, housing, or educational opportunities as a result of that conviction. My pardon will remove this burden on them.
Biden noted in his announcement that while white, black, and brown people use marijuana at similar rates, minorities have been arrested, prosecuted, and convicted at disproportionately higher rates. Steve Herman, VOA News, Washington.
I'm Marissa Melton. This is VOA News.